Welcome to another quiet journey through time. If you are here to rest, you are in the right place. Tonight we will walk slowly through the shaded halls and sunlit courtyards of ancient Thebes. The air is warm. The Nile drifts silently nearby, and the city breathes with the unhurried rhythm of thousands of lives. Our focus is on a particular kind of person, not a king, not a soldier, not a builder of stone monuments, but someone whose work preserved those monuments in words and symbols. The ancient Egyptian scribe. Imagine a workspace filled with the scent of papyrus and ink, the scratch of a reed pen on smooth paper. Scribe is a word that means both writer and his work. It's a broad term encompassing many roles. Some scribes recorded the words of kings on temple walls. Some kept financial records for the Pharaoh. Others copied religious texts or created magical spells. Many worked as teachers, passing their knowledge down to the next generation. The most famous scribe, the one whose work we will examine tonight, is a man named Oni. He worked during the reign of King Tutankhamun, a boy pharaoh who came to power when he was just 10 years old. When Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered in the 20th century, the team found over 200 pieces of papyrus with Oni's name inscribed on them. They were neatly bundled together, forming a kind of personal archive. And when we examine these documents, it's like stepping into Oni's workspace. There are lists of supplies, records of births and deaths, even magical spells to ensure a safe journey. All told, they paint a picture of everyday life in ancient Egypt. Let's now leave the bustling city and cross the threshold into the realm of the dead. Here, silence reigns, but it is a silence filled with meaning. Every voice has been hushed, every heartbeat stilled, every breath held in reverence for the eternal journey that lies ahead. This is the Book of the Dead, a collection of funerary texts meant to guide the deceased through the underworld. It's filled with rituals and spells, hymns and prayers, all designed to ensure the safe passage of the soul. Scribes like Oni played a vital role in its creation, carefully copying and meticulously illustrating these sacred texts. Now we find ourselves at the entrance to the Hall of Truth. Before us stands a monumental gate adorned with intricate carvings and vibrant colors. Above, the sun god, Ra, spreads his wings, symbolizing the eternal light that awaits those who pass through this threshold. But the gate is not just a physical barrier. It represents the challenges that lie ahead, the trials that test the wisdom and purity of the heart. The Hall of Truth was believed to be the final resting place of the elite, a place where the barriers between the worlds were thinnest. To enter, one had to pass through a symbolic gate, a physical manifestation of the challenges that lay ahead. Once inside, the elite could contemplate the mysteries of the universe in peace, secure in the knowledge that their legacy would endure for eternity, surrounded by their possessions and the faithful servants who chose to join them in death. These silent chambers echo with the whispers of a bygone era. They offer us a glimpse into a world where the boundaries between the living and the dead were blurred, and where the journey into the afterlife was a grand adventure. This week, we're going to talk about the scribes who recorded everything that was important for their society to remember. But first, if you want more information on the geography of ancient Egypt, check out the Crash Course Geography episode on the Nile River Delta. We'll wait for you there. Alright, welcome back. Imagine it is early morning in Thebes. The first light is spilling over the eastern horizon, touching the pale walls of the temple with a gold glow. You rise from a low bed. The air is cool now, but the heat will arrive soon. The floor beneath your bare feet is hard-packed clay. Scribal schools were attached to temples, usually serving as living quarters for students who boarded the temple. There were no grade level, but rather groups of students of similar ability. A new student would start at the end of the group, copying text, while older students moved ahead to more advanced letters. Students were expected to master the basics of reading and writing within 3 years, after which they could move on to more advanced studies. Scribal students were taught subjects like mathematics, including geometry and astronomy. Instead, they would memorize the words they wanted to write in hieroglyphs and recall them from memory. Of course, you'd have to practice a lot in order to get really good at this. Scribes would practice writing on a smooth surface like stone, and they were expected to produce flawless copies of text. It was important for a scribe to be able to read a text aloud fluently, so they were also trained to recite the text they copied. Now you're an expert on scribe in ancient Egypt. Thanks for joining me this week. Remember to come back next week to keep exploring ancient Egypt. And you can keep learning about ancient Egypt through additional resources. Now, let us turn to a figure whose name has reached us across the centuries. Ani, a temple scribe in Thebes, who lived in the time when Egypt's power was still respected, but its old glory was beginning to fade. Ani's life is not recorded in a grand statue or carved deep into a temple wall. It is pieced together from fragments, small sheets of papyrus, kept for reasons we do not entirely know. Some were found among temple records, others tucked into household archives, and a few preserved in the dry air of forgotten storerooms. The writing is steady, trained, but not overly decorative. It is the hand of a man who wrote for a living, not just for show. On some papyri, Ani records inventories, jars of oil, bolts of linen, baskets of dates. These are routine official lists, the kind any scribe might have made, but in between them are notes that seem more personal. One is a short reflection on the weather. He writes that the river was lower than usual that year, and the fishermen spoke of poor catches. Another is a careful description of a festival procession. The sound of drums, the flicker of torches, the smell of roasted goose in the streets. And then there are the hints of something else, small, cautious lines that seem almost like satire. He mentions, in a way both formal and playful, that the nobleman he served had a voice like a donkey in the morning. It is written in a style that could be taken as respectful, but perhaps was meant as a quiet joke, one that only a friend might understand. Ani's life, from what we can tell, was not marked by sudden rises or falls. He was not called to serve a king directly, nor was he dismissed in disgrace. He remained year after year in the same temple, performing the same duties, earning the same modest income. His personal notes show that he had a small family, a wife, whose name is not certain. The papyrus is damaged, a son who he hoped might also become a scribe. There is a tender line, almost hidden in the margins of a work record, where he writes, "May the boy's hand grow steady." The rhythm of Annie's days would have been much like the rhythm we imagined earlier. The early mornings, the steady writing, the breaks in the courtyard, the warm afternoons, the walk home through the streets of Thebes. But Honest fragments also show a mind that watched. He noticed the moods of the city, the seasons of the river, the small changes in the temple's routines. He saw, as the old priests grew fewer, and the younger ones took on their duties, that the ceremonies became a little shorter, the chants less elaborate. And so Annie's life is not remembered for one great act or one famous document. It is remembered because he wrote just enough of himself into the margins, that across more than 3,000 years we can still imagine him. When you picture him, you might see a man sitting in the shaded corner of a stone courtyard, his reed pen moving slowly, a faint smile on his lips. As he writes something only he will understand, the sound of his pen is the same as the sound of all the others, but the words are just a little different. We have no way of knowing if Ani dreamed at night of pharaohs or pyramids, of victories on the eastern border, or of treasure ships coming home from across the sea. But sometimes, on scraps of papyrus, he left us echoes of those dreams. He wrote down songs about Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, and Ra, the sun god who sailed across the sky in his solar boat. He even copied down parts of the Book of the Dead, spells to protect travelers on their way to the underworld. As he worked during the day, he may have chanted these spells under his breath, helping to ensure that his own journey after death would be safe. You can imagine him writing these things down in the quiet of the night, by the dim light of an oil lamp, the ink brush moving quickly across the page. It's a quiet, personal space, the space between sleep and wakefulness, where magic and the everyday meet. This is a moment when the familiar rules of the world seem to shift and anything is possible. And for a few precious moments, Ani is free to explore those possibilities, to dream of a world that might be, or a world that once was. When we think of ancient Egypt, images come to mind. Great pyramids piercing the sky, daring expeditions into the desert sands, golden treasures, perhaps mummies hidden in tombs. What about the people, their homes, their daily lives, how they found comfort and peace? Welcome to my channel. Join me on a journey through history, where we bring ancient stories to life through our love of history and storytelling. Today, let us explore how ancient Egyptians viewed death and the afterlife, and what lessons we can learn from their wisdom. Imagine yourself standing in the shadow of the Great Pyramid of Giza. You're not just looking at a monument. You're witnessing a tomb, a final resting place for one of history's most powerful rulers, the fourth dynasty Pharaoh Khufu. But inside that massive structure, instead of finding treasure or gold, you find a series of chambers and corridors leading to a central chamber. And in the center of this chamber lies Khufu's sarcophagus. He lies there, wrapped in layers of bandages, his face covered by a mask made of precious materials like gold and precious stones. Around him are placed items he might need in the afterlife: food, tools, furniture, even chariots. All of these things suggest that whoever placed them here believed that Khufu would need them on his journey. They were making sure that he wasn't just laid to rest, but prepared for a new life. Fast forward to the shores of Lake Menzala on the other side of Egypt. Here, tucked away from the bustling trade routes and grand temples, lies a humble village. Life here is simple. People go about their daily routines, working as farmers, fishermen, or artisans. Bait tend their fields, repair their boats, and craft goods for trade. Among them is a family preparing for a funeral. They gather together to pay their respects to a beloved member of their community who has passed away. They too must ensure that the body is prepared, not just for burial, but for the journey to the afterlife. In both of these scenarios, we witness the same human experience, death. Yet the ways in which the Egyptians deal with it differ vastly. The pharaoh receives elaborate treatment, befitting his status, while the villagers' ceremony is more modest. So what does this tell us about the Egyptians' view of death? It shows us that, for the Egyptians, death was not seen as an ending, but as a transition, a journey into the afterlife. To understand this further, let's look at one of the most iconic ceremonies they performed. Let's jump back in time and enter a grand hall. We hear the murmur of voices, the gentle strumming of a harp. Light flickers from torches held by attendants, casting dancing shadows on the walls. In the center, a group is gathered around a sarcophagus. On top of it rests a statue, not just any statue, but a likeness of a person who has recently passed away. The statue is crafted with intricate detail, capturing the essence of the person, and it's placed in a posture as if ready to embark on a journey. This is not a random scene. It's a depiction of a funeral ceremony known as the opening of the mouth. The ceremony begins with the statue being brought into the hall, carried by priests or family members. The statue, representing the deceased person, is placed upright, and the focus shifts to the face. Using a small tool resembling an axe, the priests gently touch the nose, eyes, ears, and mouth of the statue. Each touch is symbolic, almost like a blessing or an activation. This act is known as opening the senses. By opening the mouth, the statue is believed to be able to eat and speak in the afterlife. By opening the eyes, they can see. By opening the ears, they can hear. It's as if the statue is being prepared, not just for burial, but for a new life. But the ceremony doesn't end there. The room fills with the aroma of incense as the priests chant and recite prayers. Offerings of food, flowers, and even small animals are placed around the statue. It's as if a feast is being set out for the statue, ensuring they have sustenance for their journey. The entire ceremony is a beautiful blend of rituals, prayers, and offerings, all aimed at guiding the statue, the representation of the individual, into the afterlife. So what does this ceremony tell us about ancient Egyptian beliefs? It shows us that for the Egyptians, the afterlife was not just a concept, it was a reality. They believed that after death, the individual would continue to exist in some form and would need preparation to navigate this next phase. It also shows us the importance of community in their culture. The ceremony involves not just the immediate family, but the wider community. The priests and the villagers coming together to support and guide the deceased. Let's take a moment to reflect on the lessons we can learn from this. In today's world, when we face death, we often feel a sense of loss, of finality. The Egyptians, on the other hand, teach us to see death as a transition, a moment of change rather than an ending. They remind us to honor the dead, not just with grief, but with celebration, with the belief that they are embarking on a new journey. As we continue our journey through ancient Egypt, we encounter many fascinating aspects of their culture, their architecture, their art, and their societal structure. But it's moments like these, when we delve into their beliefs and practices surrounding death, that we truly connect with them on a human level. We realize that despite the passage of time and the differences in our cultures, we are united by the same experiences, the same joys, sorrows, hopes, and fears. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop learning. And if you would like to learn more about ancient Egyptian beliefs, consider checking out this video on Egyptian views on the afterlife. Dive deeper into the fascinating world of the pharaohs and their beliefs about the journey after death. This is the home of the vizier, the highest official under the pharaoh, a man whose duties touched law, order, and the flow of the kingdom's wealth. The gates are tall but not hostile. They open into a shaded courtyard where the air feels just a little cooler than the city beyond. The sound of the street fades, replaced by the soft splash of water from a small fountain carved with lotus. You are led inside. Here, the floors are smooth and swept. Mats of woven reed soften our step. The walls are painted in calm color, ochre, cream, and faded blue. The light is filtered through carved wooden screens, turning the harsh glare of the day into a warm gold. Before us is a small palace, cool and serene. On the far side, a colonnaded walkway shelters another court, perhaps for the vizier's family. To one side, a garden path beckons with the scent of orange blossom. But our path leads straight to the inner door of the palace. With a final turn, we enter the innermost chamber, the vizier's study. It is not large, but it is carefully arranged. Let's take a moment to look around. A broad table holds scrolls and papyrus rolls, neatly tied. A polished palette rests nearby, its black and red pigment refreshed each morning. A jar of wine, imported from the Delta, stands within reach. The air smells faintly of cedar wood, carried in chests from far off Lebanon. The room is filled with quiet. A half-dozen scribes stand or kneel with their own tongue, copying decree, organizing tax records, drafting letters to distant governors. They speak little, and when they do, their voices are low. Some are reading aloud, carefully enunciate each syllable as they copy a royal edict. Others are hunched over their work, whispering to themselves as they calculate sums of grain or measure length canal. All are intent on their task, knowing that the work they do must be perfect. For here, in the very center of the vizier's study sits the source of all their work, the vizier himself. He wears linen finer than anything a temple scribe would touch. His collar is beaded, and the stone catch the light. When he speaks, the scribes lean forward slightly, pens ready. In his hand, he holds a papyrus scroll, its message read and read. When he speaks, the scribes lean forward slightly, pen read. Outside, the sounds of the city seem distant, muted by the thick walls and high gates of the vizier's palace. But here, in this quiet room, the vizier can shape the flow of the king. A word can change the duties of a governor. A signature can release grain to a hungry village, or commission the building of a new canal. But it is also a place of beauty, a sanctuary of calm in the midst of the bustling city. The faded blue walls are adorned with paintings of the god, while the floors are swept clean, and the scent of cedar fills the air. The scribes take pride in their work, for they are the keepers of the king's secret and the authors of his law. They are the ones who ensure that the kingdom runs smooth, that the people are governed fairly, and that the Pharaoh's will is carried out. It's been a long day, and the scribes are weary, but there is still work. One of them unrolls a papyrus, smoothing it out on the table before. Another dips his quill into an ink pot, preparing to copy a royal decree. The third looks up from his calculation, his brow furrowed in concentration. Each of them is focused on their task, oblivious to the presence of anyone else in the room. It's a familiar sight, one that has played out countless times in the vizier's study. The only sound is the scratching of quills on papyrus, the murmur of voices reciting hieroglyphs, and the soft shuffle of as the scribes move about the room. In the corner, a young apprentice watches the other, eager to learn the secret. The vizier and his linen robe rustling behind. He takes his place at the central table, his eyes scanning the scrolls and tabs laid out before him. The scribes fall silent, their pens poised above the papyrus. They know that the vizier's attention is on them now, that their every move is being scrutinized. It's a daunting thought. They are the scribes of the Egyptian state, and it is their duty to serve the kingdom with their pen and their work. The vizier reaches for a scroll, unrolling it with practiced hand. His eyes, sharp and keen, scan the right, his lips moving silent as he reads. The other scribes watch him, their faces a mixture of awe and respect. The vizier is the second most powerful man in Egypt, and his word is law. But he is also a scholar and a thinker, a man who uses his intellect and wisdom to keep the kingdom running smooth. And the scribe, though they may not always agree with his decision, know that he is acting in the best interest of each. After what seems like an eternity, the vizier sets the scroll down. His face thought. He turned to the scribe, his voice deep and resonant. "Gather round," he said, and they do so without a moment's hesitation. The vizier leans back, steepling his finger. "Today," he begins, "the Pharaoh has asked for my counsel on a matter of great importance." The scribes lean closer, their heads bent in concentration. The vizier continued, "The granaries in the south are low, and the people are suffering from hunger. They work quickly, but with precision, knowing that the lives of many depend on the accuracy of their work." As the scribes work, the vizier watches, his gaze intent. He knows that they are under pressure, but he also knows that they are up to the task. These men are the best scribes in Egypt, and they will not let him or the kingdom down. Finally, the letters are finished, and the scribe presents them to the vizier. He reads them carefully, his brow furrowed, concentration. When he is satisfied, he signs them with his official seal. The scribes take the letter, their steps brisk as they leave the vizier's study. They know that they must get the letters to the governors as quickly as possible. So, without a moment's delay, they mount their chariots and drive south, carrying with them the vizier's orders and the hope of relief for the starving. As the last scribe leaves, the vizier sinks back into his chair, his shoulders slumping slightly. He has made a difficult decision today, but it is one that he believes is the right. He knows that there will be opposition, that some will criticize his choice, but he is not swayed by such naysay. He is the vizier, the second most powerful man in Egypt, and it is his duty to do do what is best for the king. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the study. The vizier rises from his chair, his joints aching. He is old, he knows, but he has no intention of slow. He has too much work, too much responsibility to bear. He walks to the window, looking out at the city of Thebes. The lights of the city twinkle like stars, and the sound of laughter and music drift him on the night breeze. He smiles sad. He, too, would like to be out there enjoying the simple pleasures of life. But he knows that he cannot. He is the vizier, and his duty is to serve the king. And so, as the night grows dark and the city noises fade, the vizier returns to his work, his mind sharp and his resolve unwavering. He is the backbone, and he will not falter. Outside, the sun moves slowly down the sky. The shadows in the courtyard grow long. The sound of the fountain soft in the evening air. Soon the scribes will gather their scroll. The vizier will retire to a private meal, and the palace will grow quiet again. From the streets beyond the gate, the vizier's world feels far away, untouched by the ache and dust of the temple work. But in truth, both the humble scribe and the high vizier share the same quiet, ink flowing across papyrus, words meant to outlast them both. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, may your days be filled with sunshine and your nights with stars.